All right, great. So you guys have had a chance to respond to the do now question. You filled out the attendance form. So away we go. So as we continue, just keep in mind, we want to put into practice the note taking system that we've developed over the course of the last couple days. Okay. So by now you should have the aim with the aim number 1.3 in your notebooks, and then you should have the aim in the form of the question: how does geography impact people and societies? And now we're ready to get into the notes. So be prepared to copy down your subtopic and the relevant notes from any slide. Okay, so up goes the slide. I give you guys, a minute or a minute and a half to copy the things down, and then we will go over it. Okay, so cultural diffusion this is not the first time you guys should be hearing this term, hopefully. Cultural diffusion is basically the exchange of ideas between different cultures. Now, we usually think of cultural diffusion as a positive experience, one culture teaching something to another. It usually comes about through positive interactions between cultures. But it's important to understand that cultural diffusion can certainly take place as a result of negative events. Okay, the greatest example of that is maybe the United States dropping the atomic bomb on Japan. Obviously, this is horrific. It killed 70,000 people in the blink of an eye, and far greater numbers later on from radiation poisoning, cancer, and so on and so forth. And it was one of the most devastating events of human history. But us dropping the atomic bomb on Japan led to a nuclear arms race that shaped human history for the better part of 70 years. So that is cultural diffusion. As we drop the bomb on Japan, other civilizations are learning from us that, hey, there is this devastating weapon that could, bring about the end of wars in the blink of an eye. And it starts a global nuclear arms race. So that's cultural diffusion. That's other cultures learning from us as a result of a negative event. Okay. Now, a lot of times positive events can lead to cultural diffusion too. So trade and business, and globalism, all of those things kind of, lead to cultural interaction also. So cultural diffusion, we shouldn't think of it as a negative or positive, thing. It's just a thing. Okay. And it can result from both positive events and negative. All right. So next slide. I'll give you guys a minute. All right, so next important vocabulary term we have here is natural barrier. I know some people guessed this in the do now, and they were pretty accurate. But essentially, a natural barrier is a geographic feature that kind of keeps cultures separate from each other. A mountain, mountains are a great example. I think someone guessed that in the do now, but that's a perfect example. There are others too. Okay, so mountains is a great example. If we lack the technology to, get over that mountain and communicate with people on the other side, we might not even know that the civilization on the other side of the mountain exists at all. Okay. Let alone trade with them or learn things from each other. So natural barriers have significant impact on civilization's ability to communicate with others outside of their own. So it's important to understand that. All right, this is the last slide for today. All right, so subtopic cultural isolation. Detail: cultures are sometimes cut off from interaction and communication with other cultures. So cultural isolation is a condition that is imposed by geography. Okay, the best example that I've seen most recently is a good friend of mine recently got married in Medellin, Colombia. And I went there for his wedding. And the city of Medellin, Colombia, is nestled right in between two mountain ranges on both sides. So it's crazy. It sits in this little valley, and it's surrounded on all sides by mountains. So when you start thinking about what life is like for people who live there, it's very insular. There's not a lot of outside influences. With modern technology, of course there is, but if we could kind of visualize back in time, what life would have been like there. The idea is that they develop their very, very own culture that is not filled with things that are borrowed from outside. And the big reason for that is because they are culturally isolated. And why are they culturally isolated? Because they're surrounded by mountains. So the important thing to understand is that geography dictates lifestyle, okay? And geography dictates how much interaction you have with other cultures. There's opposites of cultural isolation. For example, if two civilizations live on the same river and both of those civilizations possess the technology to travel over the river, boats in this case, right? The river doesn't keep those cultures separate, it serves to connect them. So, depending on technology available and depending on the geographic feature, um, you know, certain geographic features can serve to connect groups of people or keep them separate.